Alright everyone, welcome back to my channel. Today, I thought I would try something a little different, make a quick video hopefully, and do a top 5 anime I don't like. This is mostly because I couldn't think of a top 10 that I don't like. I will have another top 5 probably in the next week or so, but it'll be about a different thing when it comes to anime. But anyways, let's talk about top 5 I don't like. Let's get it started with number 5. Number 5 will be YuGiOh, the old school one. Now, I know a lot of people would probably find this a bit insulting because of how much you love the show, but just hear me out. This is one I also wanted to like, however. It wasn't just I didn't like the show and I'm just being a douche. I wanted to like it and I watched it when I was really little, just like most people who got into the show. However, unfortunately, this was the show that made me not get into and also remove myself from shows that the whole idea of the show was to collect the same things that the characters are doing. So, for example, with Yu-Gi-Oh, it's the cards, right? And with Pokemon, it's also the cards, but it's also like playing the games and collecting them in the games and stuff. And even though I was into that when I was younger, by the time I got to about 7 or 8, when I started watching Yu-Gi-Oh, it made me not get into it as much because I realized something. I noticed that I didn't care too much for collecting the same things that they are because I'd be more interested in collecting the characters themselves in some form of plastic item, such as like a toy, like a figure, or a figurine, like a statue. Or I would prefer to have them in like a model kit, like you do with Gundam kits or something. I just preferred to have them as a physical item myself instead of collecting a physical item of the stuff that they did within the show. You know, it'd be kind of like if you was watching Inuyasha and the collectibles you get would be the jewel shards instead of getting figurines of the characters. You know what I'm saying? I would prefer to get the figurines of the characters. But that was, that's what made me not like Yu-Gi-Oh! Is it basically made me realize that I don't particularly care for that style of collecting, where I'm doing the same thing that the characters are doing in the show. But that's just me. All right, time to move on to number 4. Number 4 will be Aruka 7. This is another show that I really wanted to watch because I tried to watch it back in like 2014, a little bit when I was starting to watch Gundam. Like I think I had already finished the original show, and I wanted to see like if that this would be another one that was really good because people talked about how great it was, and I wanted to give it a try. So I was like, okay, I'll give it a try, and it was horrible. I hated it. I did make it 10 episodes in, so I try to give anime a decent amount of time to develop itself. And this is a show that's longer than 13 episodes. It's got like 25 episodes, I think, for one season. So that's a pretty good, amount of episodes. And given 10 episodes to try and get into something would normally be almost the entirety of a 13 episode series like today. But this one's a little longer. But I figured, that would be enough to get me into it, but it wasn't because there's a few things that stopped me from enjoying it, and I believe, I have some listed right here. Number 1 is that the main character is just the biggest crybaby I've ever seen in an anime. Like, he cries in every episode I saw at least twice per episode. Ridiculous. And he wanted the main girl to like him because he's like got a crush on her or whatever. But then he cries in front of her, which really doesn't make a whole lot of sense if you want to try and get her to like you, you know, because it makes you look kind of weak. And the second thing is that the main girl herself really doesn't look like a main girl. Her design doesn't stick out like, hey, this is clearly the main girl character of this series. She looks like a side character. And normally when you do design like this, you try and make your main characters stick out a lot more than side characters. And side characters are usually designed to be a little bit more subdued, where it's like, okay, yeah, I can see that they're not the main character, but they're important enough to where they're here in the story. But you don't, you try to make them look a little bit more normal, while the main characters look more extravagant. But she doesn't really look like that. She looks a little bit more standard, like a almost normal. The only thing that really makes her stand out is the like outfit. I think really is the only thing that kind of makes her look like a main character, but really that's it. And the third thing is that the mechs are just horrendous. They're ugly as shit. I know a lot of people are probably going to be mad about this one because people really do like how these suits look, and I don't. They are so ugly. I've never liked super skinny suits because, or super skinny mechs, I should say, because they remind me too much of the Michael Bay Transformer movies. They just, they're overly designed and too complex, and that's the problem with suits that are more skinny, is that they tend to try and add more detail to the skinnier design. And when you do that, it makes it look overly complex for no reason. It's like you're adding design noise where there doesn't need to be any. And that's the problem with skinnier suits having more design on them. They just look too overly designed, and it reminds me too much of the Transformers from the live action movies. Even though some of them aren't very skinny, it reminds me of that. Definitely Gundam 00 does this, I think, the worst out of all the Gundam shows. It reminds me so much of the Michael Bay movies. It did come out the same year they started making the movies too, which that might be a reason why. But it reminds me so much of it. It's just like, man, they really took a lot of cues from that movie, trying to add more detail to a skinnier suit design, and it looks terrible. I'd rather have a chunkier suit or a chunkier mech that has less detail but looks more pronounced on screen with the less amount of detail to make it look more rigid and more realistic. Because if you have too much detail, there's too much design noise and you really don't know what to look at. Everything's trying to draw your attention and it's just annoying. I'd rather have something that's obviously simply designed so that I know where I want to bring my eyes to. I want to look at the head first and then work my way down or something. But when you have something that's overly designed, such as the suits from Ruka 7, you don't know where to look. You don't know where to focus your attention when you first see it. It's just all over the place. Or at least that's how it feels for me. Anyways, that's number 4. Moving on. Now, number 3 might actually be kind of a surprise considering the fact that it's not going to be as long as number 4. But number 3 is Vampire Knight. This is a show that I actually liked until you get to the end of the show. I mean, like the last episode, 2 episodes. They, right about that time is when they just completely ruin the show. And that really sucks because I did enjoy it up until that time. You know, it was one of those like, oh, this is so interesting. It's actually kind of cool. Like, I like this dynamic. But then you realize that they're just going to ruin it at the end, and it really sucks. I mean, it was proving to be a better Twilight than the actual Twilight movies, except they ruined it at the very end. Like, it could have been a way better version of that same idea. I'm not gonna spoil it here. But just so you know, it's really bad. It's an awful, awful experience. Sorry if you can hear the train in the background, by the way. It just happened to go by this time. Number 2. Now, I know this one's really going to upset people, but One Piece. um, this show I tried, but I just can't do it. I feel like the show is too boring to me. It's just not that interesting. And they do try to be like funny, because it is a kid show. It is, a shonen. But I don't find most of the humor to be very funny, or even if it is, it's just kind of like a small chuckle. It just feels like they're trying too hard to be funny. And when you're 900 something episodes into a show, it's not surprising, you know, that you don't have a whole lot there. At least in my opinion, but I've only seen a handful of episodes. I don't even know where I was in the story when I saw them. So maybe if I started from the beginning, I'd like it more. But at the same time, nothing truly grabs me in the story. It just doesn't sink me in, and I feel like part of that is because I'm not a fan of like the more like typical or stereotypical version of a pirate. You know, the one that took place back in like the old school days, which is kind of how the pirates in One Piece are done. I've never really liked that style. My favorite type of pirate is like sci-fi space pirates, like Han Solo or Captain Harlock. You know, those are my favorite type of pirates. But that's just because I like sci-fi more. I've always liked sci-fi a lot more um, than some of the other things. You know, like I do like other stuff like fantasy, but it's just not as interesting to me as sci-fi. Unfortunately, um, it just means that I have more things that push me away from it than I do that make me engaged with the characters in the story. I want to like it more. I really would like to try and actually get into it more, but I just can't. I find it too boring and tedious. Not to mention, I feel like the show is really ugly. The design of the characters is just it's a bit too much for me at times. It's just like this is ridiculous. The characters either look overly exaggerated or like they didn't even try. It's like, is this a character from the same show or are they from different shows entirely? Did you even try on this one? Like that's how it feels to me, anyways. I don't know about other people, but that's how it feels to me. It's just nothing grabs me and makes me pay attention to it. It's one of those shows where I feel like I could do other things like play a game on my phone or listen to music or something and still get the same experience because I'm just not interested enough to give it my full attention. You know, maybe that's more on me than it is the show, but with design, that's definitely the show. And with animation, I also feel like the animation could could use some work. Personally, um, I know like not every show has the best animation. Like even Naruto, a show that I do like, is it has its moments where animation isn't that great, and sometimes even character design there is kind of meh. But the story's a lot more interesting to me, and I've always enjoyed ninjas more. Like they're just more interesting. They're a fantasy type element or character style that I feel is a lot more enjoyable than pirates. I don't know, that's just me. So maybe one day I'll try and give One Piece more of a try and actually watch it from the beginning. But I don't know. Maybe I'd have to wait until the dub is actually done because there's two different dubs to this show. This show was also censored multiple times in one dub, and you know how much of it's censored in the other one, I don't know. I'm sure it's still censored somewhat. So I'm probably better off watching it in sub, but I don't know if I can watch it over 900 episodes of one show subbed because I like to marathon shows and not spread them out really far. I like to watch one show in its entirety and then wait a while a little bit before I check out the next one. That's what I did with Gundam. But with here, there is no other One Piece show as far as I know. It's just the original, and it's got so many episodes. I mean, it's just ridiculous. I know, like, Shippuden has a lot of episodes, but it has finished. It's completely dubbed now, I believe. And it's still only 500 episodes. And even though Naruto has more episodes that you can add on to it with the prequel show or the original one that's just called Naruto, and then you have its sequel, which is Boruto. Yes, they may have almost the same amount of episodes as One Piece, but you got to keep in mind that it has been broken up. It's not all in one show like One Piece is. So I don't know if I could do it. I'd have to really just buckle down and do it, but I don't know if I'm willing to do that because the show just doesn't hold my interest. I feel like the name Devil Fruit, I think it's what it's called, is like the only thing that is remotely cool about the show. Not even the fruits themselves, not the powers that they give, because I think that that's really stupid. I also think the idea that they're pirates that can't swim is even more stupid. It's like, I don't care that they ate that fruit. It's a horrible idea. You should not be a pirate if you can't swim. It's just stupid. Um, that's just my opinion on it. The name Devil Fruit though is the coolest thing from that show, in my opinion. That's just me. I'm sorry if I upset you with this particular entry, but if you're mad at this one, you're really gonna be mad at number one. Number one, oh boy, if number two got you upset, like I said, you're really gonna be mad at this one. Number one is Dragon Ball Z. This is probably the only one besides One Piece on this list that I don't just like. I don't just dislike. I straight up hate these shows. Mostly the first one. Second one, I do mostly just dislike it, but I really hate Dragon Ball Z. Okay, I hate Dragon Ball. Now, I know a lot of people might find this surprising that there's actually someone out here that's an anime fan that hates Dragon Ball. Because a lot of boys started with Dragon Ball. But keep in mind, I didn't start with Dragon Ball. I think my first anime was Sailor Moon, oddly enough. um, but I liked that show. But I do not like Dragon Ball for a number of reasons. Number one, the fan base. The fan base make this show impossible to enjoy, even if I wanted to. Because you cannot hold the opinion at all that there are any shows that you possibly like more. If you are a Dragon Ball Z fan and there's ever an anime that ever surpasses Dragon Ball in your eyes, you'll immediately be harassed and targeted and called stupid and all this other stuff just because you don't like Dragon Ball. I've experienced this so many times. Not just when I was a kid, but as I got older as well. It's like this is the only community I've ever seen where that happens. I'm sure it happens in others too, but this is the only one I've experienced myself. It's like you don't like Dragon Ball or you feel like other shows are better, you just get relentlessly attacked by them. I don't really care because I've experienced it multiple times, so go ahead if you want to do that in the comments of this one. But hear me out first at the very least. The community already makes it just really hard to enjoy it at all, even if I wanted to. Secondly, I don't know what the hell is going on in this show. What is the story here? Like, maybe if I started from the original and worked my way up, I would make more sense. But every time I ever saw an episode of this show way back in the day, it was always a freaking fight. And I swear, I felt like I was watching the same episode multiple times. I might have been, but I wouldn't know. And according to some fans, the whole joke about that is actually very true. I didn't even know that was a joke. People are like, oh, one fight can last like 14 episodes. I'm like, are you serious? So I could have actually been watching different episodes of the same fight and I didn't even know it because they're basically so similar. Or if something new does happen in one fight, it doesn't even seem like it really matters because it keeps going. It's like, end it. It's a bit ridiculous. Like, I can understand at least if like Naruto's like fourth great ninja war because it's a war. It's not, you know, one battle. It's a whole war. So there's like multiple areas where battles are happening, or at least you're supposed to be. But no, here it's just one battle between like two guys and it lasts for like 15 episodes. It's like, dude, that's an entire season of a show. You had one fight that lasted a whole season? That's ridiculous. I'm sorry, but that really bothers me because it's just so, it makes action less interesting. Because when you have an entire episode that's nothing but action for 14 episodes, it's just kind of like watching Endless 8 to me from Haruhi Suzumiya. It's like it's the same episode 8 times in a row. I might as well just be doing that while I'm watching Dragon Ball Z fights. It's just not interesting. Why would they do that? It makes no sense to me. Another one I don't like about this show is that, like, it's just so weird. Like, for one, why is there a person that turns into a giant ape? I'm not sure which show that is. It might be the original or it might be Dragon Ball Z. But I know it's like small Goku who turns into like a giant monkey. I don't know what the hell is going on. Why does that happen? I don't know. It makes no sense. Why is there. Well, what are the Dragon Balls? Like, that's not even explained. And I know I watched quite a few episodes of Dragon Ball because I was waiting on my show to come on, which, if you remember my story of how I got into mech anime, you might remember this part of the story where I talked about Zoids. And Zoids was supposed to come on immediately after Dragon Ball. But at least in my area, it kept saying that, it was supposed to come on at this time. But whenever you change to that channel at that time, it wouldn't be Zoids. It'd be another episode of Dragon Ball Z. It's like it just absorbed all of the time slots around it just because it was so popular. And it made me hate it even more. Because now it's like, I can't even watch the show that I actually want to see. I have to watch this stupid crap. Why? On top of that, I hate the character design. I know a lot of people are gonna be so mad at this because the guy who did it's like, heralded as like this great artist, and he might be a good artist. He might actually be really good. I just don't see it because he has a very particular style for his characters, and it looks awful. At least to me. For one, it doesn't make any of the girls actually look attractive. They all look hideous because they look like men. They're too muscular, in my opinion. They're overly muscular. There's no problem with having muscular tone or definition, but they look like bodybuilders just as much as the little kids, which also don't make any sense. It's like, these are young children. Most average children do not look like they're ready to rip off your head because they were trained by Hulk Hogan and Arnold Schwarzenegger. It makes no sense. Why? Why do they look so beefy? It just makes no sense to me. It takes me out of the experience because I feel like I'm not looking at a kid. It just doesn't look like a child to me. It looks like a midget, like a really short man. It's like, that's clearly a full-grown adult. They're just short. But clearly they're not because they don't know a lot of things about the world. And it's just like, it makes no sense to me. It's like, why would you do that to your characters? Why would you make them look like this? It's another thing that makes that, like, even though I like JRPGs quite a lot, it stops me from playing the Dragon Quest games because he does the same art design and it looks like Dragon Ball. And it takes me out of the experience. I cannot play those games. I just can't. No matter how good the mechanics are, no matter how good the story is or the characters, I just can't get past the art design. And I know for a lot of people, it's like, why does that matter so much to you? Well, art design, it actually plays a much bigger role in if something's appealing to people or not. You might not realize it, but there are probably a few things that even you don't like just because of how it looks. You might love the story or even enjoy the characters, but you just don't get into it because you can't get past the design of the characters or the suits or the weapons or whatever, whatever you just don't like. You might not be able to get past it. Another thing is that I also don't care for the writer because I know he's Japanese and they have a different like uh, role with like guns, but he's like very anti-gun, and I love guns, so that's another thing that makes me not like him as a person because he's not a very pro-gun person, which I understand not everybody is, but in his work, that's why they all fight with their fist. That's just a really lame excuse, in my opinion. Especially if you have it to where there's aliens and they come from different worlds, and it's just like, there would be guns. I'm sorry, there just would be. You can't have aliens that fight with their fists. That makes no sense. Because logically, if you think about it, whenever people get more technologically advanced, they get more physically frail. Just look at us, a couple of decades ago, we were rough and tough people because our technology, while decent, wasn't great. And you still had to be pretty tough to make it through. Now you don't have to do that. You can be soft and squishy and still live because technology allows you to do so. So imagine super advanced race. How would they look? I can guarantee you they're probably not going to look like, Macho Man Randy Savage. They're just not going to be that kind of built physique. They're not going to look like that. So it goes against the logical sci-fi reasons. The reasons for the stuff to be the way they are make no sense. Characters themselves and art design looks hideous. The story is just, I really don't get it. I don't understand what the hell's going on or what the whole purpose of the Dragon Balls are. I know it's to make a wish, but once you make that wish, they all scatter again. I'm sorry. I didn't do all that work to get a bunch of balls to make a wish and then it scatter all over the world. I want that damn power. I want to keep that kind of power. So if that's how it's going to be, I'm not going to waste my time looking for those balls to make a wish. I'm sorry, I wouldn't do that. And I think a lot of people wouldn't do that either. I mean, seriously, it makes no sense. And it's just not a very appealing show to me. It just isn't. I know a lot of people love it, but the community just pushes me away so hard besides the show itself. And also the fact that it got so popular that it, at least in my opinion, I think that it did. It took the time slot of a show I was interested in seeing. Maybe it was a different time slot and I didn't understand time zones at the time. I was a little kid, but maybe it was a different time zone. I don't know. But I'm pretty sure it always said it would come on at like 3:30 or something like that, and it was supposed to be, or 4:30. I know it was right after DBZ, and it was supposed to be a new episode every Friday. And then I'm waiting on it, and it's not. It's a freaking another episode of Dragon Ball Z. I wanted to shoot the TV screen. That's how angry it makes me. This is the only anime in existence that ever gets me this riled up. It's just like people say so much stuff about it, and half of it's not even true. Like, this show was heavily censored over here in America because it was an adult show. No, it isn't. It's a shonen. It's meant for kids. Yes, it is still a child show. It's just we had to censor it over here to make it fit within children guidelines. That's why it was censored, not because it was an adult show. Get your facts straight. It really gets to me. But I need to stop this section of the video before I end up ranting for another, 20 minutes. Because I can just keep going with this. I really hate Dragon Ball Z to an extreme length. Maybe one day I will actually try to get into this show again and watch it from the beginning and watch the original show. But it's going to be a chore. And I don't know if I'm actually going to be able to do that. So we'll have to see. But thank you for watching, everyone. I appreciate it. This is Yokai, and I'm signing out.